Right. So I always start this side of things in the Office 365 environment, just to show that it's quite easy and simple. It all works quite nicely. I'm sure most of you've seen this already, but if I go into Outlook, what we did at TVision is we bought 2 Microsoft licenses. So we are a bona fide Microsoft customer, or Bevica is. So we get all the Microsoft emails about all their products. So if I scroll down here, all of these are all the sorts of things, and all the sorts of things that Microsoft just will be sending for the products they're changing. And I was quite surprised at how much they send. It's a bit overwhelming for all their different types of products, all the things that are being improved, changed, etc. And it takes forever to go reading through all of it. But what specifically I wanted to show you is if I click on an email, so this is an email from a customer, because the link into Business Central is native. Here, for example, it's recognized that the email is about a particular invoice. So if I click on that, it'll open up the email, the invoice. So this is a posted invoice. There we go. I can expand it out. So from Outlook, I can basically, I'm now looking at Business Central. From here, I can do all the sorts of things I would do in Business Central. I can print, I can approve, cancel, create credit notes, everything that you could do normally. I can also, from here, there's an Insights tab down here, Business Central Insights, that because the email address is held in Business Central, it's now showing me that I work at the Asala Bar and Grill, and this is effectively the customer card that I'm looking at from inside Outlook. If I scroll down, so these are the tiles that we all recognize. I can click on Open Sales Orders, probably make that a bit bigger, a bit more useful. And then from here, again, it's as if I was in Business Central. I can do anything I want to. So that's just one example of the integration with the Microsoft products. So close that, close that. So let's go into, so this is what the product looks like. You'll recognize the tiles, you'll recognize the layout. This is a particular role center. There's all the role centers that you're used to. What I want to do before going into the functionality, I wanted to show you some of the kind of more slightly admin things, not because I think particularly you'll be using them yourselves, but just so that you are aware that they exist and to kind of demystify how the product works. So if I go into my settings, this is where you'd set your company, your work date. And also down here, when you receive notifications. So if I click on notifications, so these are pop-ups that appear on pages that each individual can decide whether they want or don't want to appear. So if I scroll down, you'll see here, I've switched off a few, which I find particularly annoying. So Microsoft will keep adding them to the notification to here, and we can add notifications. So if there's something that we want to be triggered on a sales order or an item card, we can add it here, have it ticked, and then users can decide if they want to see it or not. Yeah, so that's my settings. If I then go to assisted setup. So one of the things that Microsoft are trying to do is give you guys more information, more ability to do things yourselves. So this is just one example where they've created, in some cases, wizards, in some cases, links to videos and documents. So for example, if I wanted to have a look at customized document layouts, I can click on that and it'll take me to their website where there's a bit of information about how this all works. If I scroll down, you'll see down here. So these are the ones that tick, the ones that already been done, and then there's some video. So this kind of gives you an idea of where Microsoft are trying to say, these are things that might not be there ready out of the box, but you can go in, investigate, and decide if you want to use them rather than having to come to us. So in advanced settings, there's just two areas I'd like to quickly show you here. So extensions, this is how the software is built up. So every piece of software that is written either by us, by Microsoft, or by another partner is an extension, and they're all published into this list. So the base application, as it's called, is Business Central. So that's the one that gets installed first. Then everything else relies on the base application. So you'll see that, for example, if we look at Business Central Intelligence Cloud, that's another Microsoft extension or app that relies on the base application. And then you'll see that there's a whole load of T-Vision ones. So these are ones that we've written, and that one there is our base Bevica Essentials app. So that's effectively a file that we make available and gets installed using, oh, not on this page. There we go. We can publish, uninstall, upload extensions from this page, and then it gets deployed, a bit like the FOB files that some of you are used to importing into the Object Designer. So that's our base app, and then we've also created other apps for other bits of functionality where we think technically they kind of grow on each other. So we've got, that's our warehouse integration app, then the credit control notepad. This one here is our additional costs. And then if you have things like Jet or Continua installed, you'll also see lines here for the different bits of functionality that Jet and Continua will give you. So the version numbers here on the side relate to the version numbers that I publish on our Freshdesk releases. So you can always see if you're using the latest version. If you're not, you can just grab the app file and install it. Then the other thing I wanted to show on is the service connections. So one of the things Microsoft, again, are really pushing on the SaaS model is the connectivity to services available via the web. So I just wanted to try and do an online demo of UK postcode service. So I'll show you how that works. So this is provided by a company called Get Address. So they've written a little wizard. So let me go through the wizard. So I click, I want Get Address. They want me to create an API key, but obviously I don't have one yet. So they've given me a link to their website. So they have different plans. I'm just going to pick the free one. Just grab my Bevica email address. Say I'm a robot. So hopefully in a second, in my Bevica inbox, fingers crossed, I should get an email. This is where hopefully I don't have to wait too long. We might come back to it if it's not, it doesn't appear in a second. Okay, I might come back to that one. Yeah, I'll come back to that in a second. One thing to notice with these apps, that if they are apps provided by third parties, we have no way of modifying those apps. So this particular Get Address app that's installed in the system, what we've spotted with some of our customers that have tried using it is that it doesn't 100% meet the needs. If that's the case, we don't have the ability to change it. We'd have to try and find either an alternative app that does exactly what we want, or write a bespoke app. And I think that's true for all the apps that you might find on the app source or that you would install on Bevica that are not authored by us. So just one last go up here. Oh, that's a real shame. Oops. Oh, has it gone into junk? Oh, there it is. It's gone into the junk. Right, let me just finish this off. So I copy the API key. Paste it into there, say OK. OK, just telling me I should read terms and conditions. That's fine, say OK. So if I close that, open this up and then go to, for example, the customers page. Okay, the Asaba Bar and Grill. Come down to a postcode. Okay, so that's found, that's gone and used, that's using that service, and then I can put in the TVision address. So admittedly, this is quite a simple service that's built into the software using a third party, but the idea is that's how Microsoft want everything to be that simple. Now, obviously not everything can be that simple, but the principle is that because everything's in the Microsoft environment, all the permissions, the authentications, everything in the background that you would normally need to set up is kind of all done just by the nature of you having a license, so you don't have to worry about it as a user. Right, let's go back to just see if there's anything left here. The admin center was the last thing on the kind of the technical side I wanted to show you. So this is the, we would need access to this like Karen was saying, and this really is kind of the back end of how you manage the system. So we were talking before about these upgrades that happen every 6 months and there are hot fixes every month. And we said they're automatic. They're not quite automatic. So Microsoft, via your emails, so if I click on notification recipients, so these people here will be on Microsoft mailing list for all the updates for the product. So if you're on this list here, you will get all that huge list of emails that you saw before, and they will warn you of updates to the software. So they'll warn you about the hot fixes that they're coming, that they'll be put into your test system. They'll warn you about the wave updates, and you can manage if they actually go live or not here. So if we had dates here, this would tell you that there's an update going into your live version or your test version, and you can stop those updates until you're happy that you've tested them. So although Microsoft go on about that they're automatic, they are in terms of making them available to you, but you do have some control over when they go live to make sure that you've been able to test. Okay, let's go back into, oops. Okay, so on the role center, it looks pretty much what you're used to. You have the tiles, you have a kind of KPI area. The navigation pane has disappeared, and instead we've got the navigation along the top. And then this section here is a kind of shortcut or bookmark area where you can create any bookmarks that you want, and they're very easy to add and to remove. One thing I wanted to show you here was that the feature management in terms of the upgrades that we were talking about. So there are some things that Microsoft have changed or will change in the software that really kind of are a bigger change than just a nice new piece of functionality. So what they do is that they warn you about it here. They tell you when it might go live, and at a certain point before it's being released, they let you try it out, as it's called. So you can come here in your test system, click on the try it out, run with it and see if it, if you like it, if you don't like it. So here you can see that I've been playing around with new email capabilities, which works very nicely. It just makes interacting with emails better. The one here that I'm quite interested in finding out about for the future is this sales pricing experience. They have something called a sales price list that I'm really curious to see how that would work, because I think if it does what I think it does, it'll be quite interesting for us. And here in the Learn More, like everything, you can go in and have a look at what it's supposed to do. This never gives you the entire information, but it's a start. It's nothing like getting your hands on the software itself. So back to the Role Center, you have the navigation pane, quick links to lots of things, KPIs, the tiles that we all know about, tiles more, and then further down we've got more KPIs, more graphs that you can add and remove, so you can customize everything. And then here we have the Power BI. So because we've written some, or Ben has written some charts in Power BI and linked them into our Bevica SaaS environment, we can pick from a list of reports that have been designed for our Role Center. So users will be able to see this list and pick and choose which reports they want and change them as and when they need to. And then down here I've got some reports that are running on a job queue in the background. One other thing that's quite interesting here, another example of how Microsoft links into, where's it gone? Oh, overdue predicted payments. So again, with the ability to link into the kind of the back end of Microsoft and their big data and common data model, you can set a process going that they will try and predict of your sales invoices that are not due yet, which ones will be overdue or which ones people will not pay on time. So they call this payment prediction, and they fill in these two fields here that this list is filtering on. And this is an example of where Microsoft are kind of teasing a little bit, where they've written a standard algorithm in the background to come up with what they think will be a late payment or not late payment, but they let you create your own if you want to, or pick different types of models. So here, a standard, they let you only use the standard one. Pick the standard one. You can create your own model, and you can have a look at see how this model is created. So this would be, you'd set this up, you'd let it run overnight every night, and then the next morning you'd see a list of invoices that they think will be late. But it's just an example of how the ability in SaaS to link into the bigger Microsoft world is kind of quite simple and easy. Okay, so going into a little bit more detail about how the functionality works. It looks very much like what everyone's used to. You have your customer card, customer list. You can do all the things here that you could do currently. So you can filter, you can sort, you can search for things. There is this nice search button here that searches on every single field rather than just a particular column. So if I put GR, it'll find everything that's got GR in any column across. That's particularly useful on the item list. Fact box is on the side, as before. One nice feature that works very well in SaaS is the edit in Excel. So you've got your standard open in Excel, which would push out everything I can see directly into Excel. But the edit in Excel links the Excel spreadsheet directly back into Business Central. So if I open that up, just let it go and do its bit. So there's an add-on that's automatically installed using my login it'll just take a second to grab the data and show it. There we go, any minute now. Okay, so this now, any change I make here, I can publish back into Business Central. So if I wanted to change credit limits, so let's just grab that and push the credit limits down. Let's scroll across, and then, because I know someone will be thinking it, even if they don't ask, if I put a salesperson code that doesn't exist, if I then publish, it's going away, pushing that back into Business Central, validating all the fields as if the user was manually putting the fields in, and then here it's telling you that there's a problem, and the problem is with that particular salesperson code that JRX doesn't exist. So if I clear that, do done. So if I now close this because I'm not interested in it anymore, go back to Business Central and just refresh the page, you'll see that all those credit limits now have all changed to $250,000. So it's a bit dangerous, but in the right context, it is quite a nice way of updating data quickly and easily. If you don't want to use rapid start, for example, which is another way of doing it. So customizing pages works just as well as current versions. You can move fields around, you can hide things, you can display things. So this is the fact boxes on the side. You can move fields around. It all works pretty much as you'd expect. So if I now go into slightly a bit more detail about kind of the Bevica changes that we've made. If I go to my items. So the item list has vintage, percentage alcohol, duty rates as normal. One of the biggest changes is probably availability. So in older Bevica, you weren't allowed to put a quantity on the sales order if you didn't have the stock. And that's very good for stock availability and promising quantities to customers, but it can be a bit restricted sometimes if you just want to record demand on a sales order and manage who gets the stock. So what we've done when we've moved over to Bevica SaaS is kept it a bit more in line with the way that the standard product works, where you can put any quantity you want on a sales order and then manage from those quantities who gets availability of that stock or who we can promise it to. So some of the things that help us with that is if I click on here, projected availability, you can see that this is the way that the system thinks about stock. So it's all date related. And in this case, we're looking at both duty-free and duty-paid stock. So if I change that to weeks, you'll see if I expand here on the sales orders and the purchase orders, or the demand and supply lines that make up these quantities, you'll see that some of them are just a requirement, but some are reserved. So reserved means that it is allocated for that customer. So it means that I can put 100 on a sales order, but allocate 50 of those to a particular, to be reserved for that customer. So bringing free stock down by 50. So probably the easiest way of showing you that is on a sales order itself. So let me go into sales orders. So new sales order. So bar and grill. So if I just tab off, what it'll do now is it's gone to find the default shipping address, which is something that's new. So we can set a default address that we want to ship to. In this case, I've made it a duty-free address, a bonded duty-free address. And I've created a wine list that gets automatically created on the order with quantities. So these quantities at the moment, you'll see, are not reserved. So these are here if I want to. Let me create a new line. So if I copy and paste. So here you'll see if I want to, oops, hang on. A completely stupid figure in, so it's not stopping me from creating that demand from a customer. If I want to reserve or allocate quantities against this sales order, I can do it in bulk if I want to, but just to show you, I can create a Bevica reservation. And here I can reserve against item ledgers, so stock. So let's say it's for stock that I want to deliver next week. Or if I want to reserve it against purchase orders, I can do that as well. So the cases where you might reserve against purchase orders is potentially for paid reserve or on-premier transactions, or if you know there's a limited quantity of stock that's coming in the next couple of months and you want to start allocating it against that stock now, you can do that. And if you reserve it against a purchase order, when that purchase order gets receipted, that reservation moves from purchase order to item ledger, so then you can deliver the physical stock. So I think that makes the sales orders quite a bit more flexible than they currently are, where we might have had to use quotes or unpaid reserves to try and keep track of who we've promised stock for. You'll see also there's rotation number and best before dates. So that's where I said that we've improved this slightly to make rotation numbers a bit more robust in the system. So if I select that allocation of 5 there against that order, and I scroll across, you'll see that it's recorded. Okay, I can't see it, but it's recorded that rotation number against that particular item ledger entry. So if I need to tell the warehouse that a particular rotation number needs to be picked, that's the way I would do it. Okay, so coming back out. So that's probably one of the biggest changes in terms of how the software works. Just to quickly show you some of the other areas. We've got 15 minutes left. So if I search up here for paid reserves, so you'll recognize the paid reserve summary. So this works in the same way where we can sell into paid reserve. A nice feature of the latest version is that we have these things called smart lists, where you are able, or at the moment we are able, to merge 2 or 3 different sets of data and make them all available on one page for you to have a look at or export to Excel. So what we're looking at here is our paid reserve records with information about the customer. If I scroll across, so we've got provenance, condition, etc. The customer, the product, and then item information. So you'll see here that we're pulling information from the product into this smart list, as it's called. So merging lots of data from different places into one screen, which we've never been able to do, and it worked really nicely here for our paid reserves list. Now, at the moment, it's only something that we can do from a technical point of view, but Microsoft have said that they want to make it available to users so that you could create your own smart lists rather than having to export data into Excel and do pivot tables, for example. You'd be able to do those pivot tables inside the software and make them available for everyone to have a look at. So that we'll keep an eye on that and see when they make that available for users. Okay, I want to leave a bit of time at the end for any questions. So that really was kind of a quick run through. So hopefully you'll see that it's different, but it's the same. all the things that you'd expect, all the features that you're used to, are all there that you can take advantage of.